Hi, and welcome to a 10-minute coffee break with Allison and Jim. I am Allison Moore, comedian and entrepreneur, and my co-host here,
Jim Franklin.
Jim and I are business partners, friends, mentee, babysitter, and co-workers. And we have learned that we have so much in common, but underneath all of our diversity is a lot of similarities and a lot of success. So what we have done is we've created a series that we can invest 10 minutes into learning, talking, listening, building, and growing in diversity. And so we want to invite you to join us. Today we're talking about race in the workplace and why it is super important. Okay, so Jim, you being in the military as a high-ranking officer, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sure.
I like that idea.
Okay, cool. Well, kind of, sort of. I know your journey, though, Jim. From the military, CFO of 17 family businesses, you have at least led, at some point, over 20,000 employees. I've been counting, watching you.
Okay.
But here's my question. Why is race in the workplace a hot topic now? Why is it necessary to talk about today?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that drive us to it. Mm-hmm. The first and probably the biggest is that George Floyd kind of woke everybody up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much the violence as it was the violence against race and what was motivating it, that kind of thing. And it moved into the workplace out of necessity. You're an HR person, so you know. And here we are having a coffee break and talking. But the reality is that in the workplace, it's difficult to talk about it. And so because you don't talk about it, it becomes that taboo subject. Mm-hmm. Well, in the military, and to some degree in my family businesses, it's easy for me to talk about anything I want to. Mm-hmm. And in the military, I come from the place of a meritocracy. Mm. Now, we all know that's not necessarily true. Mm-hmm. To create meritocracy does not create equality, but the reality is I think there was a much more open forum there. Mm-hmm. So when I retired from the military, came into the civilian work world, one of the things that bugged me about the workplace was there was this underlying tension. Mm-hmm. And so, what I'd ask you, your HR, tell me, what is race in the workplace to you? Is it good, bad, indifferent, or what happens when race is confronted? Mm.
It gets weird, like what you said. I mean, it is a tense topic. You can feel it, especially, I can't imagine working in corporate when everything that happened last year would have happened, because race does become this topic that's like a landmine, that you don't know who's feeling what. You don't want to say anything, and you don't want to be the person that brings it up because you don't want what comes along with it, right?
Well, and you don't know how to bring it up.
That's a good point.
And if I am, here I am, the old white guy.
Yeah. No, right.
I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you, and I want to say, what was that offended you?
Right.
What happened? Mm-hmm. And so in the workplace, we tend to avoid it.
Because as a young Black person of color in the work world, I wouldn't even want to answer that question. I'm reading this book, Black Fatigue, which, by the way, have you heard of that book?
Oh, I have. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we got to, oh my gosh, it's so good. But it just talks about how exhausting it is as a Black person, especially the fewer that you are in a group of majority, or as a person of color, then you have to be this representative, or you have to be so Teflon tight or bulletproof ready that someone else's inquisitive feeling like, what's going on? You got to make sure that doesn't penetrate you or hurt you or put you in this position where it's like, maybe I no longer trust that you have these sincere feelings.
And here's where I take that to.
Tell me.
Not from, to.
Okay.
I take, that feeling that you have being the example, being the person that has to answer the question. To me, race in the workplace should get past that.
Yeah.
We should be just having a conversation. It doesn't matter. Yeah. If black and white come into it, it's easy to say, okay, that doesn't matter. Well, it does.
Right.
Now let's figure out how.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what started you and I talking in the beginning. You said something, and I said, is that an Allisonism? And we took that to mean, well, is that black? And I said, okay, I learned something. And then that conversation, penetrates sort of where we're headed and what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I'm going to bring it back to leadership, and then I'll ask you, your thoughts about it.
Because I'm fascinated by how leaders can grow, or people with these leadership aspirations. Like, I learned so much from you in that. So, so tell me.
Being a leader in the military, in many respects, is very easy because it's kind of prescribed. Being a leader in almost any other walk of life, particularly sports, is difficult because everybody brings something different to the table. So my question to you has a preamble. The preamble is, if you're leading me in the workplace, is there something that you think about that's race-based to avoid? And that creates a false conversation.
Yes. Wow, this is so good, Jim. Oh, man. So, as when I lead and when I was leading, I had reports to me that was why I felt very uncomfortable. I felt that I was under a different I almost felt like the person that I was leading was my boss. I almost felt like, because my boss was a white person, they were a white person, and I still felt like I was on the outside, that I couldn't make these mistakes, that I was being judged. They went out to eat, I didn't. I'm like, I don't know how that works. And so it did become this thing where I was left to feel, well, the only difference is I'm not white. And so then I kept, very public or very open conversations about being Black, or things that really mattered to myself, because I didn't feel like I had this space to be honest. Does that help? Does that
Yeah,
answer?
it does. And there's a part of leadership that is called followership, and sometimes you have to be the leader from a position that you're not the leader.
Yeah.
And you're a great person that has presence and can be an example, but I understand how that can be the pressure point too.
Because it wasn't the type of leadership where it was just strictly the age situation. Like, because I know you and trust you, if I were to lead you, I would still take direction from you, feedback from you, and et cetera, because I value your experience. There's just experience on age that I just,
And there's another factor here too. We're talking to, in these coffee breaks, a lot of big corporate players, and a big corporation is a place that you become anonymous in quickly. And if you're white and anonymous, there's not much fear to that.
Right.
If you're Black and anonymous, I get the feeling that there's a little bit of fear of exclusion that comes from that anonymity.
Because if I feel excluded, I'm like, well, I know I'm really out of here now. You know what I mean? Like, there is just no chance that I'm going to move forward. So what happens is, a lot of people of color submit themselves, even though they don't want to, in these moments. And I know we're going to talk about this later in this series, but these spaces of microaggression, these spaces of where they almost feel abused, right? Emotionally or verbally or mentally, because they're like, I'm so suppressed. And so that obviously interferes with the output, the productivity, the creativity. So many times in our relationship, have you had to kick my imposter syndrome, right? And give me freedom to go even bigger. And I have realized through our relationship how much I will make myself, I don't want to outshine the white people. I don't want any trouble. I don't want to, and that's just really weird.
Our call to action from all of this talk today is, to me, is have the conversation. You've got to start the conversation, and it's not going to be easy. So you make friends. And you build a team. And once you've got the team built with the friends, it's easier to kind of bring up things that are disturbing each of you.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad. And I am excited about our journey, because this could be a really cringy topic, especially minorities and majorities both. They're like, oh, God, diversity. And so we're here. I'm excited about this coffee break. Yes, Jim.
All right.